Hey there and welcome. My name is Pete, and today, as promised, we complete the 10,000 subscriber Q&A video. We are also playing some NBA Playgrounds in the back, nothing spectacular, just so the video doesn't get boring. We are running the team of Dario Saric and Spud Webb through the first tournament in the game. That should take about 20 minutes and gives me plenty of time to answer your questions. Before we jump in, I would also like to announce the winner of the Alpha Protocol giveaway. The user with the name Astro Sloth has won. So Astro Sloth, I have left a reply to your comment. Please get in contact with me in a private message on either Facebook or Twitter, or you can also send me an email. You can find the address in the channel description, but please get in contact, otherwise I have no way of sending you the Steam code. And with that being said, let us jump in. So, question number 1, how much has this channel impacted your personal life? Well, a lot is probably an understatement. I spend a ton of time working on this channel, so of course it has greatly impacted my life. I regularly block time slots for myself during the week to make new videos. My girlfriend also gives me a ton of freedom to spend time on this channel, which I am of course incredibly thankful for. Apart from that, the channel has definitely helped develop a few skills. Video editing is of course a big one, but I have also learned a lot about search engine optimization and also on how to interact with a growing base of viewers. Up next, which Mass Effect game is your favorite and why? This is really a tough one, but I would say it's Mass Effect 2. Now, all three games are great in their own right, they also all have their own little quirks and mistakes, and even though the overall story for Mass Effect 2 might just be the weakest of the three, the character work in that game is just amazing, and that alone honestly makes it my favorite of the three. Will you do a Stellaris season at some point? Good question. I would say unlikely at this point. I have played Stellaris on and off in the past, and it is one of those games that I like to play by myself, but not necessarily one that I think is well suited for this channel. Now, I am by no means an expert on the game, but other than RimWorld for example, where you can see the action happening, in Stellaris a lot of the actual gameplay happens in the UI and messages. All in all, it's just a bit too theoretical maybe. It's not the most hands-on game, if you know what I mean. And while I do think that strategy games as a whole could definitely have a home on this channel, Stellaris might not be my first choice. That doesn't mean it will never happen, but at least for the time being I have no immediate plans. How long do you think would it take to complete Skyrim or The Witcher 3 with a 100% playthrough? Especially for Skyrim, I do think about that occasionally, and I think unless we make like 1 hour long episodes, then it will definitely take much longer than any series I have ever made. The same is true for The Witcher, although Skyrim is a lot more familiar to me. All in all though, probably well above 100 episodes, so with the current schedule of 1 episode per week per series, yes, the next Elder Scrolls or Witcher might be out before that series is finished. Doug Patrick then would like to know more about my thoughts on basketball, especially my favorite NBA game I have ever been to. Unfortunately, Doug, I have never been to an NBA game, because I live in Germany. Regarding my thoughts on basketball, I could probably fill an entire video with that. I play the sport for about 15 years now, and therefore it is also my favorite type of sport. I love how fast-paced the game is. If done right, it can have a very appealing strategic aspect, and as you might have guessed, that is right up my alley. One question then that was asked several times: can you tell me about your video and audio recording software? I record my video footage using DxTory, and if there are certain games that have a problem with that, I use Fraps as an alternative. For the South Park series, by the way, I had to use Fraps because DxTory wouldn't record. My audio recording software then, that is Audacity, where I record my audio and do a bit of cleanup, just to make the whole thing sound a bit nicer. The whole package then gets put together in Sony Vegas, which then outputs the final video in a huge file. That file then gets sent to a neat program called Handbrake, which significantly reduces the file size while keeping the video quality mostly the same. And regarding the voice, no, I did not practice that, apart from making YouTube videos for the last 2.5 years of course, but if you go back and watch some of my earlier videos, you will hear a noticeable difference. Another basketball related question then: what are your thoughts on LeBron James moving to the Lakers? I think for him it is definitely the right move. LA will definitely give him the exposure he needs and maybe also deserves. That will put him in a position to do a lot of good around the league, I think. James is a fairly outspoken person when it comes to social issues, so from that perspective I definitely like the move. Things remain to be seen in terms of his success as an athlete. At the moment, even with LeBron, I don't think the Lakers have a team in place that can make a championship run, but LeBron himself doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon, so it might be interesting to see what the Lakers can do in the next 1 or 2 years. One thing that I am a bit afraid of, and we saw that happen in Cleveland, that would be management pretty much overhauling the entire roster to fit LeBron's needs. The Lakers have a super intriguing young core in place, and I would hate to see them trade away their young assets and draft picks just to get LeBron another ring. In the end, I think we'll see how it works out. James is on a long-term contract this time, so that makes the situation a bit different than it was in Cleveland, and who knows, maybe the team can already go further this season than people expect. Next question, will you ever do a face reveal? Honestly, I am not a big fan of that. I know that you rightfully have a certain interest to know what I look like, and admittedly I feel flattered by that. Still, I also feel like a face cam definitely has a huge distraction potential. Especially in story-heavy games like the Mass Effect series, for example, I already make it a priority to never talk when there is dialogue or a cutscene going on, and having my face displayed in those story-heavy moments, that doesn't really sit well with me. I am myself a huge fan of YouTubers who handle this very similar, and while I do watch the occasional facecam video, in the majority of videos I watch I don't really feel the facecam adds all that much. So for the moment a face reveal is not planned, but as with all things on this channel, that could very well change in the future. Why did you start a YouTube channel? I believe I briefly talked about this in the last Q&A video. Basically it comes down to the fact that I couldn't find a channel like it. I have always been fascinated with YouTube as a possible creative outlet, and often when watching other gameplay walkthroughs I found myself getting frustrated because either the quality was not what I expected, or the commentary did not really explain why particular choices were made, or there wasn't any commentary to begin with, or the person playing repeatedly missed things or made mistakes. So in the end I thought to myself, why don't you go ahead and make that channel yourself? And yeah, I did, and now we're here. The next question fits in perfectly at this point. Where do you see yourself and the channel in a year? What's your next objective for Pete Complete? Well, a year is a long time, and especially recently the channel has picked up a lot of steam, so it is really hard to say for me at this point where Pete Complete will be in 2019. My plan for this year was to reach 10,000 subscribers and then maybe 20 or 25 in the next year. Now we have just gained about 2,000 subscribers in the span of a week, so those goals might have to be slightly readjusted. However, subscribers on YouTube are of course not everything. In a year I would also like the channel to be at a point where I can reliably make a small amount of money from it, and reliability is the key aspect here, because that would be the necessary foundation if I ever want to pursue this as more than a hobby. If we're talking about content, in a year I would also like to have a system in place that allows me to consistently have at least 3 series running at the same time. I put a heavy focus on diversity on this channel, and I want to be able to kind of scratch all the itches, which is also a reason I'm very happy that I was able to start a new Mass Effect series, because yeah, that story-focused RPG itch, it was getting stronger and stronger. Cheetah266 then asks a very interesting question. If you could only choose 3 games to play for the rest of your life, which 3 would they be? Well, I would probably pick some of the deepest games I know, maybe games with a bit of a learning curve, stuff like Dwarf Fortress, EVE Online, games that at the moment I haven't even touched yet, but games that I think if I had to play them for the next 50, 60, 70 years would probably keep me entertained for at least a while. If we are allowing mods, then games like Skyrim or RimWorld could also make the list, so my list of 3 would probably be headlined by Dwarf Fortress, then I'll take Skyrim with mods, and last but not least I would take an NBA 2K game, because I would probably have time enough to create an entire fantasy roster from scratch, which is actually something I did back in NBA 2K13, and I think it would be interesting to follow that for a decade or two. What game have you started, thought you would finish, but had to stop due to not enjoying it? Well, the list of games I have started but not finished is actually fairly long. It includes games like the first Witcher, every single Fallout game, a few of the games in the Hitman series, as well as Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition. However, I didn't stop playing a single of those games because I didn't enjoy it. For the most part, time was the big reason why I stopped playing, but there is one very recent example of a game I started playing and I thought I would enjoy it, but then I stopped because I didn't, and that game is Mass Effect Andromeda. As you should know by now, I love Mass Effect, but I just couldn't get into the game. The completionist in me became frustrated extremely quickly, which is a shame because story-wise the game really intrigued me, but I just didn't enjoy playing it. Next question then by the Ray985. Do you ever see yourself doing YouTube full-time, and if so, at which point? Of course, doing YouTube full-time is a dream of mine, however, we are still far away from that. Now, if the channel continues to grow consistently for the next few years, then it might indeed be possible to see Pete Complete go full-time at some point, but it is of course also a monetary question, and that brings me back to the whole reliability thing, which is not necessarily YouTube's strong suit. To sum it up, yes, I can absolutely see myself doing this full-time, but will very likely have to reach at least 100,000 subscribers, maybe even more before that happens. Up next, what is your favorite game that you have completed so far? My favorite game that I have completed on this channel would be Mass Effect 1. My favorite game that I have completed regardless of whether or not it happened on Pete Complete, that would be Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. In my opinion, still a masterpiece of a game today, and also my favorite game of all time. Another question, do you do post-commentary or do you do commentary while playing? I do post-commentary and have done so ever since I started with Pete Complete. The perfectionist in me wouldn't have it any other way, and I think a large part of the quality of my videos can also be attributed to that. Andrew Smith then asks, what games did you grow up playing that started your path towards this channel and gaming in general? I took my first steps in the gaming world, surprise surprise, with strategy games. The Settlers 2 and 3 were among the first games I played. Later on then I picked up sports games, with EA's NHL 2000 actually being the first one I think. And from that point onwards I also slowly picked up role-playing games, but my gaming background, so to say, is mostly anchored in strategy. What got you interested in the NBA since you're not from America? Well, being German, the whole Dirk Nowitzki thing probably played a part, although I have to say my first contact with the NBA was probably through NBA video games. That was back in the days of a young Allen Iverson, and my interest expanded from there. I began reading NBA magazines, the few we have in Germany, and then I also occasionally started watching a few games, and nowadays I get most of my info online. Regarding the interest in the NBA in Europe, I think that will increase in the next few years. I think there is a considerable interest already, but I have no doubt the NBA will become more international in the future, and that should have a positive impact on the interest in Europe as well. Another question that was maybe sparked by the Alpha Protocol giveaway: can or will you do a playthrough of Alpha Protocol? Alpha Protocol was actually very close to becoming the first RPG series on this channel instead of Mass Effect. In the end though, I decided against it simply because the game is not really all that popular. In the future, I might very well get back to it to fill that RPG slot on the channel, although it can sadly not be completed in a 100% completionist way, at least not in a single playthrough, so before that happens I would have to think about how to tackle the game. But it is definitely on my list and could happen at some point down the line. Also a question that was asked a lot: will you do more RimWorld after the Ice Sheet series? Well, to be honest, I'm not sure yet. The recent interest in the RimWorld series has been amazing, so from that perspective it would definitely be worth it to do another series. However, I also want to make room for other games on this channel, and I don't want to get stuck becoming a YouTuber who only does one or two different games. That is already a bit of a problem with the NBA series, and I am also not quite sure how that is going to continue with NBA 2K19, but for RimWorld my original plans were to do one single series and then move on. At the moment, I think I'll stick to that plan, although once again RimWorld has been fantastic for this channel, so whatever comes after would likely be very similar. A question that was asked both on YouTube as well as on Twitter: a lot of people criticized the recent installment of the 2K series, so I would like to hear what you think of the game overall. Overall, I think the direction that NBA 2K is heading in is reason for concern. The series is, in my opinion, still the best basketball game out there, but a lot of things about the game make me worried. The whole microtransaction thing is without a doubt becoming a problem, and a big reason why game modes like My Career or My Team are becoming increasingly unpopular. Especially My League mode, however, is still a lot of fun. Apart from a few problems with the trade and free agency logic, there is not much to complain about, which is also why I still play this game despite its flaws. Whether or not I want to give 2K the support in form of a playthrough for 2K19, and if yes, in which way, I haven't really decided yet. At the moment I think My League mode will return in some form, but again I am worried about the recent developments in the series, and it's not like there aren't other games to play. The main reason I will likely come back is because I play basketball myself, and that interest really just always pulls me back in. The next question then comes from Lone Wander, and I have to give a special shout out at this point. Dude, you have been with the channel since the very beginning. It's so awesome to see you still around. The question: what games are you looking forward to being released in the future, and will you consider doing content on them? Off the top of my head, one game would be Biomutant, which could definitely become a series at some point. I am also cautiously looking forward to Anthem, not necessarily because I want to play the game, just because I want to see what EA does with it. There is a new Star Wars game coming out in 2019 called Jedi Fallen Order. That also has me interested. Then The Last of Us 2, even though I do not own a PlayStation, I will definitely watch someone else play through that game. And Beyond Good and Evil 2, that also looks very intriguing. And last but not least, I think it is one of the most hyped games at the moment, Cyberpunk 2077. After the success of the Witcher series, I'm really excited for that one. However, the scope of that game is probably going to be a bit too much for a full completionist series. When you started, did you think you'd play all these games, or did you think you'd just stick to a sort of series like sports or strategy? I launched Pete Complete with the full intent of becoming a variety channel. I never wanted to paint myself into a corner content-wise, and that is also still one of my top priorities for this channel. So Pete Complete will never be only strategy games, only sports games, or only RPGs. The second question here regarding another RimWorld series, I already answered that earlier. Will you make a 100% walkthrough of South Park: The Fractured But Whole? Yes, I think that is going to happen at some point. The first game was surprisingly a lot of fun, so the second one is also on my list. However, since we just launched a new Mass Effect series, there are no immediate plans. Have you played XCOM 2 and will we ever see turn-based strategy games on the channel? Now, I haven't played XCOM 2, but I have played XCOM 1, and I have often thought about doing a series on that. XCOM is also another one of those games that I have never managed to finish, so that would be another reason to tackle it in a full completionist series. We then have another basketball question. What did you think of the NBA offseason in real life, and how mad were you that the Pels could not keep DeMarcus Cousins and that he went to the Warriors instead? Well, the whole DeMarcus Cousins story definitely has two sides to it. It is understandable that he believes in himself and sees himself as a max contract player. At the same time, I can also see why the Pelicans didn't offer him a contract like that, and joining the Warriors now puts him in a very comfortable position. I'm still sad the Pelicans lost him, but the team played pretty well without him last season, so I am cautiously optimistic for the next one. I feel like the NBA offseason as a whole is getting increasingly more dramatic each year, but I also think that's mainly because of the media coverage and not because of the moves being made. And this year's offseason has actually been fairly unsurprising in my opinion. Yes, LeBron went to the Lakers, but that was widely expected. Cousins to the Warriors definitely came as a surprise, but it remains to be seen when he can actually play again. My biggest surprise was probably Paul George remaining with the Thunder. I really liked that move, staying with his team, because it showed that small markets still have a chance. Up next, do you ever plan on doing any non-gaming related content? Let me put it this way. I am very interested in making other types of videos as well. For example, I have been playing around with the idea of doing short nature documentary style videos. And no, I am not talking about the RimWorld series. However, I'm not quite sure how that would fit on this channel. And at the moment, the gaming videos keep me busy enough, so I'll likely stick to them for the foreseeable future. Up next, have you ever played tabletop RPGs such as Dungeons & Dragons? Yes, a fantastic question, because I have just recently started playing D&D for the first time, and I absolutely love it. We have a small beginner group together that I'm currently the Dungeon Master for. We only have session number 4 coming up soon. Unfortunately, we don't play that regularly, but it is a lot of fun. The players have just escaped prison after being in a gladiator fight, and their adventure is really only just beginning. So yeah, I enjoyed immensely, I love the whole world building aspect. I would like to play myself one day, but for the moment I'm perfectly happy with the role of the DM, and this is definitely a hobby that I can see myself stick with for a long time. Another question from the same person. You had quite a few good ones. What are some obscure subreddits that you can recommend? Now, these days I mainly use Reddit for the NBA subreddit. I also occasionally stop by subreddits for the various games I play, and as I just mentioned, the Dungeons & Dragons subreddit has also become a new favorite of mine. Now, my obscure recommendations, I wouldn't call them obscure in the sense that they are strange, but more because they're simply not that big. The first one would be the Let's Play subreddit, a fantastic place for people who want to make video game content on YouTube. It has helped me out a lot in the beginning. It is a small but very helpful community. I still try to stop by as often as I can and help people out with the same problems that I faced 2 years ago. Another recommendation that I have is PC Game Releases, a subreddit with barely over 1,000 subscribers, but run by a super dedicated person who constantly updates infos and lists about games coming out in the future. My last two recommendations as a new D&D Dungeon Master would be Fantasy Maps and D&D Maps. Those two subreddits can be an amazing source of inspiration. Some of the maps are definitely hit or miss, but overall, at least for me, they always get the mind working with new ideas. Are there any YouTubers you personally enjoy that you feel are underappreciated? I really think that depends on how you define underappreciated. I follow a few guys who I think are very talented but who also have quite the following already. Channels like Tierzu, Killian Experience or Nakey Jakey. Those three are definitely some of the most remarkable channels I have discovered in the last 2 years. I am also a longtime fan of Many a True Nerd, but he is quite popular as well. One of the smaller YouTubers I really enjoy watching is DeekFTW, a bit more of a creative gaming channel. He has 2 fantastic series for City Skylines and Planet Coaster, very relaxed, high quality videos, so if that is your thing, feel free to check him out. One last recommendation is a German YouTuber, Finn Kliman. If you're not German, you probably haven't heard of him. In Germany, he is fairly popular. He doesn't do anything with gaming though. His channel started off with amateur DIY videos, but Finn has an amazing personality and is in my opinion one of, if not the brightest young content creator I have seen in the past few years. He really embodies this independent creative spirit. It is really hard to describe, but he is a content creator through and through, always looking for new creative outlets. He always has like 5 different big projects going on at the same time, but he puts effort and a lot of heart into everything he does. And as a young, maybe up-and-coming content creator myself, he is definitely an inspiration. One very popular question then, what did you write your master thesis for? Please understand that I don't want to go too much into detail here. First of all, I haven't received my final grade for it yet, and with too much information it should also be fairly easy to find the thing. And once again, I hope you understand that I want to keep YouTube somewhat separate from my personal life. In essence, I wrote about the methodology of online surveys, with a special focus on ethical questions, things like data security, opt-in and opt-out procedures, methods to implement informed consent, and how those methods affect people's willingness to participate. I understand that's not the most spectacular topic, but I think it's highly relevant in my field of research, and the results are promising as well, but I don't want to get into that at this point. Final question now by another user who has been a long-time subscriber of this channel, and the question here is, what is your job? Well, first and foremost, I am still a student, but that is going to change soon. I have a bit of a background in online marketing, which admittedly also helped me out a bit with the whole YouTube thing. My future career path, however, will actually be in research. After I receive my master's degree, I will remain with the university, and I will continue to do research on media and communications. And with that, we have now reached the end of our little Q&A session. The dynamic duo of Spot Web and Darius Saric have also won the tournament in the background, and with that, we can now wrap this video up. My apologies to those of you whose questions I did not manage to answer. There will definitely be more Q&A videos in the future, so I will hopefully get to you at some point down the line. To all of you, however, thank you so much for the questions. The 10,000 subscriber video received over 230 comments, so thank you all so much for your support. Once again, please, user Astro Sloth, you have won the giveaway. Please get in contact with me. You can send me a private message either on Twitter or on Facebook, or you can use the email address that you find in my channel info. I am sorry that I didn't get around to answering your question. I might post my PC build in the channel description at some point. Going over it here in the video would have taken just a bit too long. And with that being said, we have now reached the end of this Q&A video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then I would be happy if you could leave a thumbs up. And if you want to support the channel further, then you can either subscribe if you haven't already, or you can support the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.